1,000 tanks. That is what the British threw at the German lines east of Caen. First, 2,000 bombers would pulverize everything. Then the tanks would charge through. It sounded simple. It was not. The British lost over 400 tanks in 3 days but failed to break through. This is Operation Goodwood. July 18 to 20, 1944. Caen, Normandy, France. A battle is about to begin that will change the course of the war. On one side, British Second Army, commanded by General O'Connor. Against them, Nazi Germany, led by General Eberbach. Both sides know what is at stake. To understand this battle, we need context. Montgomery needed to break through the German lines around Caen. He assembled the largest armored force the British had ever put into a single attack. 1,000 tanks, preceded by the heaviest carpet bombing in history. British Second Army had assembled a powerful force. 8 armored brigades, 1,000 tanks, 2,000 bombers. Nazi Germany was equally prepared. 4 panzer divisions, 88mm guns, minefields. The stakes could not be higher. A defeat here would be catastrophic for either side. General O'Connor studied the situation carefully. Every decision now could mean victory or disaster. General Eberbach was confident. The plan was set. There was no turning back. The men on both sides knew that many of them would not survive what was coming. Caen was supposed to fall on D-Day. 6 weeks later, the British were still fighting for it. The Germans held on with elite panzer divisions. Montgomery planned Operation Goodwood. 3 armored divisions would attack east of Caen through a narrow corridor. At dawn on July 18, 2,000 RAF and USAF bombers carpet-bombed the German positions. The bombardment was staggering. The bombing killed hundreds of Germans and destroyed many positions. Some soldiers were buried alive in their foxholes. The 11th Armored Division led the attack. 1,000 tanks rolled forward through the dust of the bombing. Initial progress was good. Stunned German survivors were overrun. But some positions had survived the bombing. German 88mm guns, dug in deep, had survived the bombardment. They opened fire and began destroying British tanks. At Cagny, a single battery of 88mm guns knocked out 16 tanks in minutes. The advance stalled. The narrow corridor meant tanks were channeled into killing zones. German anti-tank guns had perfect fields of fire. The British lost over 400 tanks in 3 days. It was the worst British armored loss of the entire Normandy campaign. Montgomery called it a success because it drew German panzer reserves away from the American sector. Eisenhower was furious. He had expected a breakthrough. The relationship between Montgomery and Eisenhower soured. Goodwood did weaken the German panzer divisions. This helped Operation Cobra, the American breakout, succeed a week later. The British lost over 400 tanks in 3 days but failed to break through. However, the attack drew German reserves and helped the American breakout at Cobra. The cost was enormous. British Second Army lost 400 plus tanks lost, 5,500 casualties. Nazi Germany suffered even more. 100 tanks lost, significant casualties. When the news reached the capitals, the world understood that the war had changed. For the soldiers who survived, this battle would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The commanders on both sides would be judged by history for their decisions here. Military historians would later analyze every move, every decision, every mistake. But for those who were there, no analysis could capture what they went through. Goodwood showed the limits of armored attack against prepared defenses. Its indirect contribution to the American breakout made it strategically important despite tactical failure. The lessons of this battle would influence military strategy for generations to come. Today, memorials stand where the fighting took place. A reminder of what happened here. Books, documentaries, and films have told this story. But nothing compares to the reality. This was Operation Goodwood. The British lost over 400 tanks in 3 days but failed to break through. And the world was never the same. The events described here shaped the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today.